Hey, hello once again, fellow flight simmers and cockpit builders. Welcome back to another one of my Back to Basics videos. On this one, we're actually going to be talking about push button switches for your home cockpit. But before we get started, I'd just like to remind all of you that, especially those that are newer to my videos, that I am not a spokesperson for SimVimX or Real Sim Control, and I certainly do not represent them. I'm just a user of their product that absolutely loves it, and I just want to try to help out anybody who's just starting to use it to better understand the system. But I always recommend that you guys please visit their website at simvimx.com so you can get all the information directly from them and maybe a lot of details that I may have missed in the production of these videos. So let's go right over to my little table here and so we can start talking about that. So as you can see, there are many types of switches that you can buy and use in your home cockpit. Obviously a lot of these won't be good enough, for depending on the complexity or the realism of your home cockpit. So these are just basically going to be generic switches, that you might be able to adapt to work with your setup. But so you obviously have, little tiny switches like these right here that are kind of just different shapes, different colors, and you can obviously find all these switches in a variety of shapes and sizes and colors and everything. So you choose whatever you think is best for your setup. You got square ones, you got round ones, you got tiny little bitty round ones. You got even these right here, they count as momentary contact switches because although they are considered leaf switches, you can make them stay down, which will be more like a toggle switch, or you can just have something that goes over them and presses it momentarily, and this is just like a momentary contact switch in that case. And then we got some switches with lights built in. These are a little bit more complicated, but I just painted the top half of this black so that the light will only be visible right here. And then I just wrote on it right there. And then you got the same kind but in red, that you can just, they're all momentary contact, these right here. And then you got more complicated ones like these, I call these Corey type switches. And in my opinion, these work pretty good for the MCP panel, like for example for the Boeing 737 or a lot of the Airbus switches that have a light on them, because they do have a light built in. Now if you look at the back of them, these are a lot more complicated because they have a ton of terminals so that you can choose how you want to use this. Two of these terminals are for the light and the other ones are for normally open, normally closed, and momentary contact and all that good stuff. um, and then this one right here is exactly the same, but this is a latching one. So this one right here, I'm not sure if you could tell right here, when you press it, it actually stays in. So this one acts more like a toggle switch as well, not so much like a momentary contact switch. This one here, even though it's the same exact switch, let me try to put it where you can see it. When you press it, it just presses, but it comes right back out. So this is a true momentary contact. And I believe these right here are called KD22 or something like that. They're, if you try to buy real Corey switches, they are very expensive. So this is a good alternative to not spend a lot of money and still kind of look like the real thing. And then I've also included the encoders here because all these encoders have a push button switch on the knob. So you can kind of, you probably can't see it, but you can press each one of these. It has a push button on the knob if you push it in. So those all count as that. So basically the way these momentary switches work is they basically just complete a circuit. So if you can see with the two that I have connected right here, all it's doing is basically it's taking, it's coming from the negative rail and then it goes through the switch, and as long as the switch is normally open, which means it doesn't have contact, then it cannot complete the circuit back to the Arduino. And that's what tells the plugin, the SimVimX plugin, if that switch has been pressed or not. So the moment that you make the press, it actually completes the circuit, and then it tells the Arduino, hey, I have a high on this, and it tells the plugin that you push that switch. So if we go over to this picture here, normally I think the way the SimVim works, and I'm not 100% positive on this, but I think the way it normally works is it detects the rising edge. So when you press a switch, you basically have a zero, which is a low, and then when you press the switch, it turns into a one, which is a high. So most of the time, I think what happens with most electronics is it detects when you press it. So as soon as you press it, it detects, hey, that switch got pressed, and then it becomes a high for the moment that you have it pressed. And as soon as you release it, then it becomes a low again. But I'm sure there are a few programs and different electronics in the world and PLCs and all kinds of other things that they actually detect when you release the button. So you press the button and then it becomes a high, but whatever that button is designed to be done doesn't happen until you release it, and then it detects that you release the button and then it becomes a low again. For the purposes of SimVimX and real sim control, I'm pretty sure we can assume that it detects when you press the button. Okay, but if we go over to the website now, the SimVimX website, if we go over to the hardware section and you go to switches, this is where you can find all the information about how to connect them directly and using multiplexers, which I'm going to be going over myself today here on this video. But basically, if you read this whole entire page, it'll give you a better understanding of the different types of switches that there is. It talks about the single pole, single throw, or it talks about normally open and normally closed, which I kind of already tried to explain. I think for everything that I've done so far, all the switches that I have that are momentary contact push button switches, they're all normally open, and that's the way they function with SimVimX. So, but you can go ahead and please read, through this entire web page, and you can learn a lot more about switches. Okay, but the bottom line, the short and sweet of it is basically you're going to have momentary contact switches normally only have two terminals. That's the norm, okay? So, or at least two that you're going to use. And then one of them is going to be the ground. And it doesn't matter which one, because remember, all these switches are doing is completing a circuit. That's why I decided to start with this video about momentary contact switches or push button switches, because it cannot get any easier than this. So one of the two legs or the connections is going to go to the ground, which is going to be a common ground for your entire system. And the other one is going to go either to the pin where you're going to assign it in SimVimX in the configurator, or it's going to go to a multiplexer to whatever pin you assign it. But if you notice, all the grounds and everything, they're just going to go to the ground all the time, the common ground. Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and go back to my table here. And before I clear everything off the table, I just wanted to mention that these switches right here that have a lot of pins, a lot of connections in the back, I'm going to be talking about them in separate videos because it's not as simple as just connecting a momentary contact switch with only connections. So I'm going to be talking about these switches separately, so that try to keep it as simple as possible for each individual type of different complicated switch. All right, but now what we're going to do here is we're going to start connecting some switches here. So I have another thing that I didn't mention from earlier, is that when you're connecting switches like this, you can daisy chain all the grounds, because like I said before, all the grounds are going to eventually end up all together. So there's really no need to take a ground from each switch and take it over to the ground rail. If you're going to have a place where you have a bunch of switches linked together or close together, you can just go ahead and daisy chain all the grounds and then just take one of those down to the main ground wire. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start connecting just so you can see how simple this is. And I'm going to go ahead and put the ground right there, since that is my common ground rail, the whole thing. And then I'm going to just start connecting these to different pins. So I'm going to go ahead and put this one over here on pin number, I'm just going to put on number 20. Oops. And then I'll put this one here on pin, let's just say 39. Yeah, that looks like it's on number 39 right there. And then last but not least, I'll just go ahead and put this one on pin number 53. All right, so I got 20, 39, and 53. And then I got another one here, which is going to be This one I have a female connection on it, so I'm gonna actually put that one on the multiplexer over here. So I'll put it on pin 0 on the multiplexer, and once again the ground can just go to the common ground with everything else. You really can't see that one because it goes out of the frame, right? Okay, and then I got this one over here, which also has the 2 male ends. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put it over here. So I'll put the ground once again with a common ground, and then I'll just say I'll put this one over here on number 10. Alright, so now we're gonna jump over to the configurator, and we're going to start assigning. I'm just going to assign everything to buttons on the 737. I mean, all these things, you know, the good thing about SimVimX, as many of you guys probably already know, that no matter what airplane you're flying, if those, unless they have a custom command or data ref, most of the functions will work. It doesn't matter, you know, it's not just because it's for the 737 that you're assigning it on. It's only going to work for that airplane. It's going to work for any airplane that has that function or command and that doesn't use a custom data ref or command for that particular function. If we go back to our overhead here, you can see that the multiplexer, I have it on pin number 8. That's the one that's connected over here. So first of all, we have to tell the configurator that we have a multiplexer on number 8. So we have to put an input multiplexer, and we put pin here number 8. So it asks us if we want to assign a new multiplexer, and we put OK, and that'll work. And then we're going to, well, that's the only one we have on there. So let's go ahead and go to the radios. So I'm going to go to the 737 here, and we'll go to the radio panel. And what do you say? I'm going to assign that to be the nav2 transfer. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And we're going to put it on pin number 0 because that's where we have it at. Okay, so now that's the only one we're going to have on the multiplexer. So now we need to go to direct input. And for that, we're going to do some stuff on the MCP panel for that. So if we open up the MCP panel here, I can move this one out of the way. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this button right here to be the level change button. I'll put this one to be the heading select, and then I'll put this one to be the VOR lock on the MCP panel. So if we go back over here, we need to remember where we connected them, obviously. So we're going to do level change. That was pin number 20. So we'll just go down to number 20 and assign it there. And then we're going to do heading select. Was pin number 39. So we'll put that one there. And then VOR lock is going to be pin number 53. So we'll put that one there on 53. And then we have one more. I'll tell you what, why don't we go back to the radios again, and we'll just make that one for transfer for COM1, and that's going to be the one on pin number 10. So we'll go to pin number 10 and we'll just put it in there. Alright, so now we go ahead and save the configuration file. We can say leave, and then we are in our X-Plane 11 resources plugin SimVimX folder. So we're going to just call it data, which is good, and we'll just put save. Alright, so now we're all done. So now we can go over to our simulator here, and we'll just reload the configuration file, and it is showing that we have 5 inputs and 0 outputs, so that's good. Okay, so now we are here in the simulator view here, and I got the overhead camera here so you can see it. Now let me see if I can just remember what they were. I believe this one and this one were for the radios, and this is for the MCP panel. So this one was supposed to be the level change. So if I press it, yep, you can see, you can barely see it I think, but you can see that it lit up. And then I press it again. Actually, it's not going to come off until I press altitude hold. I don't have a button for altitude hold, but I can press it here, and then you can see that that one went away. And then I'll press it again, and you can see that it came back. Now the middle one here is heading select, so if I press it, it was already on, so I pressed it, now it's off, and now it's back on again. Now it's back off. And then this is the VOR lock, so if I press it, you can see that that comes on, and it actually made the heading select also come on. But then I press it again, and then it removes the VOR lock, and then I can remove the heading select here. So that's all working good. Alright, so now we go over to our radio panels here, and this one was, I believe this one was the one that I assigned for the COM1. So if I flip it, there's a frequency flops right there, the transfer switch. So you can see that it's working correctly every time I press it. Okay, and now if we go over to nav2 over here and we press this button, this should be the one that flops that, and it is. So everything's working good. Now, just if you wanted to see the input options, so if you go to SimVimX input options here, it brings up this window right here, and that allows you to see what buttons you're pressing. So if I press the one here for the nav2 transfer switch, you can see that that's what is displaying over here. And then if we press the ones for the MCP panel, there's the nav autopilot nav. It should be the VOR lock. I'm not sure why it's called nav. And then this one right here is the heading, and then this one would be the flight level change, and last but not least would be the COM1 transfer switch. So that's pretty much how easy it is to connect a few buttons to your Arduino, and either using multiplexers or not, and configure them, you know, for whatever functions you want to assign, and then you can see that they work really fast, you know. So that's why I always say it doesn't get much easier than SimVimX for flight simulation home cockpit building. Anyways, I think that's going to be it for this video. The next one will be on toggle switches, and then sometime in the future, like I said, I will go back and do the videos on the switches with the lights built in, and on the Cori type switches that I showed you earlier. Alright, so hopefully if you're just starting to use SimVimX and starting to build a home cockpit, yeah, you get something out of these videos. Like I said, I'm just replacing a whole bunch of old ones that I had already done back in the days when the website looked nothing like it looks right now, and the name had even changed. So that's why I'm redoing all these videos. So for all of you guys that have already watched all these, it probably won't help you much, but for those that are starting out, that's what they're for. All right, once again, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.